if you are a career coach, there's no doubt that LinkedIn is the platform to be and to grow, because there's over 50 million job seekers actively looking for a job on LinkedIn. So if you're a career coach, there's no better place. And to talk about this important topic, I invited one of my really good friends, one of my clients, and one of the best career coaches on LinkedIn, Mr. Adam Broda, to speak to the career coaching community. So the video that you're about to watch is Adam breaking down his secret and how he's been able to gain over 350,000 followers on LinkedIn in the last couple of years and how he did it. He also answered tons of questions from fellow career coaches that are inside of the community. So if you're not already inside of the community, there's a link below for you to join it. This community is only for career coaches. It is free. And if you believe in collaboration over competition, then you should definitely join and check it out, because we host events like this with top career coaches that are sharing their best practices for free almost on a weekly basis, if not on a weekly basis. So go ahead and enjoy this conversation with the one and only Adam Broda. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's get started. Well, everyone, welcome to one of our events. This is the second event that we have for the career coaches community. Super excited to be doing these events. We're more excited for our guests today. If you have not met Adam or know who Adam is, then you're welcome to LinkedIn, because that means you haven't been on LinkedIn. Especially if you're a career coach. I would actually say, Adam, look, I know we talked about this a lot, but my team and I track a lot of LinkedIn career coaches, influencers, or writers, and I would tell you, man, that yours is not only consistently always really good, has really good engagement, but you come from a really good place of adding value to your community. So, um, from at least for me, man, I want to thank you for adding so much value to me and from your content, and also from a tons of job seekers that, man, just reading your post does really well. And by no surprise, that's led to you growing one of the largest LinkedIn followers for a career influencer or career coach that there is out there. And I know that that doesn't come by luck. You know, you can have one post go viral, that could be luck, and you might have two posts go viral. When you constantly get posts that get tens of thousands of likes, that's not luck. There's obviously something that you're doing there. And for the fact that you're willing to come in and share this with us and just kind of have a conversation with us and kind of open it up for Q&A, it's incredible. So I'm deeply thankful for you, for our friendship, for our collaborations, and for you even doing this. So thank you, man. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm pumped to be here. Those are very nice words. It's funny because I still don't necessarily see myself as that kind of a thing, even after 4 years. But appreciate it. Yeah, I'll share what I know or what I think I know.
I love the humbliness, man. So let's do this. Adam, maybe we can have you start kind of sharing a little bit about what your LinkedIn philosophy is. You know, how you think through writing content, like what's things that you've seen have worked for you, and then maybe we can just open it up for the last kind of like 30 minutes so that people can ask questions.
Yeah. Um, I guess I would say like I have no set agenda for this call, right? I'd say feel free at any point to drop questions in the chat, and then Daniel and I can kind of moderate how we want to work through those. But I'll start with kind of a general background of where I got to where I am today, and then how I think about LinkedIn content in current state. Because to be very honest with you, my strategy has changed year over year. I honestly probably change it every quarter. I also think that the LinkedIn algorithms change like every quarter. So there's something to be said for that as well. Um, but yeah, so like 2016, I think is when I formally joined LinkedIn. I was a hiring manager at Boeing, and I joined it because I needed to look for people to hire. And I might have even joined it before that, but if I did, I don't remember using it. I know I started kind of actively using it from the hiring and recruiting side, back again, 2016, which seems like crazy that it was that long ago, 8 years. But yeah, didn't really post, mostly use it for recruiting. And sometime in 2019, I was an acting director at Boeing for a new startup venture in 3D printing, and decided that I wanted to grow my network in the additive community or the 3D printing community, and said, well, maybe LinkedIn is the way to do that, right? I can follow up with people I meet at these conferences, make connections, and maybe I can get to a couple thousand followers and then start creating content in this very niche space. Because, like 3D printing is kind of, it's kind of an enigma. There's not a ton of people into it. But again, the intent there was like to find quality content to kind of recruit for myself. So started posting like once a month in probably early 2019. Started growing a very small following, making connections, and went out on maternity leave at the end of, like, I guess November 2019 for my first child. And in that like 3-month period of time where I was out, the world kind of flipped upside down, right? We had COVID. Boeing had a bunch of issues with planes crashing and Senate hearings. They fired their CEO. No one was traveling, and then the world essentially was locking itself down, which if you've ever worked in the aerospace industry, that's not a good thing. When people aren't flying planes, that means people aren't buying planes. And if you're in an R&D team, which I am, you're usually the first to go. So it was at that point where I said, well, shoot, I probably need to have a plan B or a plan C even. And that's when I started working to make a transition into the tech world, because I figured that was pretty safe from a global pandemic. But at the same time, said, I've never been in a global pandemic. Maybe I should think about betting on myself. I don't know if you all have ever been in a global pandemic before, but that felt like the right thing to do. And I launched Broda Coaching at the very beginning of 2020 and didn't really know what kind of coach I wanted to be. The first year was entirely an experiment. So I offered different kinds of coaching. I did life coaching, development coaching, self-help coaching, career coaching. And I didn't have a website and just started kind of posting mostly comments. So for the first probably 3 or 4 months, I was commenting on different career coaching people like Austin Belsacker, who many of you all know, folks like him and a few others pretty consistently. And within like 3 to 4 months, my following had kind of jumped from right around 2,000 followers to about 5,000, just kind of off of a strictly commenting of strategy. And I posted maybe once or twice a month on some topics that I thought were interesting, not really expecting a ton of engagement. And around the 5,000K mark, I started thinking like, okay, like maybe there's something to this. Let's double down on career coaching, because that had been going the best for me. And that's kind of, the rest is history. I started posting 3 times a week sometime in the middle of 2020. I ended 2020 around 11,000 followers. In 2021, I started posting 4 to 5 times a week, and I got to about 65K followers by the end of that year. The next year, I went to 5 times a week pretty consistently, and I ended around 185K. And then 2023, 2022 and 2023 were kind of crazy years. I got to around 300 followers. There was this massive purge. That number kind of squiggled all over the place for a long time, and ended 2023, I think somewhere in like the 350 range. And yeah, I still typically post somewhere between 5 and 6 times a week. I almost take, there's almost always a day off I take every single week. I'm not 7 days a week. So that's what the journey has kind of looked like for me from a following perspective. The side business that I ran, and this is important context, the side business that I ran has always been a side business. I still have a full-time job. I still work in corporate. I've enjoyed that job for a long time. I work at Amazon. And I kept Broda Coaching in a box, in like a 5 to 15 hour a week box. So I never took more than a certain amount of clients. I never allowed myself to spend more than a certain amount of time on Broda Coaching. And that is the reason why for a while, for 2021 through most of 2022, my content strategy was a little bit more oriented towards growth and engagement. In 2023, that strategy changed a lot, and I can go into the reasons for that. But I started trying to think about what would Broda Coaching look like as a full-time business, and what would it look like to design a program, with people that sign up for it every month or every couple of months, or different options for what that would look like. And I started to change my strategy a little bit, kind of month over month, away from this. I need to grow lots and lots of followers, because at that point I had enough followers to basically keep my, my pipeline busy for every single month. I think by the end of 2023, with my one-on-one model, I was rejecting something like 90 to 95% of everybody showing up for my calls and that was interested in working with me, which is a very broken model, right? And again, we can talk about that, but yeah, like I said, the strategy to kind of get into the question I think Daniel asked. Let's talk about kind of the initial phase. So for that first year, the strategy was figuring out what my areas of expertise were. And I would tell you that I didn't know, this is not a thing I knew immediately. It's definitely a thing I know now. But when you're starting out, I think the smartest possible thing you can do is identify something like 15 to 25 creators in similar spaces to you and post really effective, impactful, value-added comments on their content, right? They already have the traffic. They already have the eyeballs. And instead of you saying, hey, I'm this person with 500 followers, I'm going to write amazing content, right? And expect that the world is going to show up for it. Sure. I mean, like that might happen. But it's statistically relative, the likelihood of success there is relatively low or relatively improbable. So I think what worked really well for me in that first year was just doubling down on effective comments, value-added comments, and even to some degree, like, I don't want to say argumentative comments, but I would kind of target highly engaged influencers in the career space that I held the opinion that they were posting incorrect content, right? So if somebody was sharing, something about ATS systems that I, as a hiring manager, knew was incorrect, I would specifically go to that thread and post like, hey, based off of my actual experience in my actual corporate job, this is how it actually happens. And that was a highly effective strategy for probably 6 to 8 months inside that first year. And I'm not saying you all should go out and troll a bunch of people, right? Like be very careful, but you kind of get the gist. Is I would go to where the engagement already was and essentially steal traffic from 15 to 25 highly followed, highly visible creators. And I did that for a solid year and a half, up to the point where I had over 50,000 followers. I really don't do that nearly as much as I used to, but again, I'm not in the crazy growth business that I maybe used to be. The second 2 years, I'd say, like, when I was really doubling down on engagement and posting something like 4 to 5 times a week, I'd probably say 75% of my posts were, and I want to be really very transparent with you all, very transparent, maybe too transparent. LinkedIn is still a super awkward content platform, in my opinion. It's awkward for a lot of reasons. I think the number one reason is because there's still something like 15 topics that you could post on at any time and do well from an engagement perspective. And the reason why LinkedIn is awkward is because you have so many people doing that, to the point where it just sounds like the same people talking about the same thing over and over again, right? Ghosting, give everybody a chance for a job, apply to jobs that are X, X number of qualifications, or there's a bunch of them that I kind of put into this upper echelon of content that if you want to go viral and you don't want to offer value and you just want people to, to like and follow and engage, like, you can use those topics. And that's the reason why I feel like LinkedIn hasn't fully cracked the code on value added content taking precedent. Sometimes it's viral content that's taking precedent. And like I said, as a content creator, you can kind of decide on what level of, or how much, viral content versus value content you want to dial up. But honestly speaking, that like 2021 to 2022 year where I grew the most percentage wise, I was probably doing something like, 60 to 75% week over week of more viral oriented content. So picking specific topics that I knew would get people to engage, right? And then kind of engaging in comments with specific people. And probably 40 to 25% of my posts week over week or month over month, I would go more to like a value distribution. So like, I'm going to give you tips about something, right? Or I'm going to give you a resume template, or I'm going to give you this thing that I've created, or, I'm going to give you my advice as a hiring manager. And then if there was a small window in there, 5 to 10% of my posts, I would say like they were more like personal and about me kind of posts. So this is what I'm doing in my free time. I'm talking about something that matters to me or my family or whatever it is. And I'd say as I started to kind of gain traction and gain a following, my strategy really in 2022 shifted the most away from like, I need to be in this mentality of constantly gaining followers and engagement, away from that a little bit more towards like, I need to start getting to a place where I can activate my audience on an offer by convincing them that I can help solve their problems, right? So I need to start to kind of subtly shift away from mass engagement all the time to content where they would want to pay for a service from me. Because if you just talk about how you're angry about ghosting or how you're angry about the ATS system, that doesn't really sell, right? Like, you're not really activating your audience or convincing your audience that you can solve their problems. So 2022 is a big shift for me, where I started posting a lot more content from like the one-on-one program I was actually selling. And I'd say that strangely, like, my engagement dropped like my growth percentages dropped a little bit, but not significantly. 2022 was also a really interesting year. 2023 was an interesting year where we saw a lot of traffic come over from Twitter, right? There was a bunch of weird stuff going on with Elon in the Twitter space. We saw a lot of Twitter influencers come over, and ultimately a lot of users on LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn traffic wise really ballooned in 2022 and 2023 because of some of those things. And I think, again, like, we reap the benefits of that. And then 2023 content, again, if I was to talk about what is my current state strategy, it looks something like this. I probably do 3 posts a week that are value added posts, right? So like teaching something, sharing something valuable, and again, like convincing my audience that I have the expertise to solve their problem. I probably do 1 to 2 posts a week on something that's a little bit more, viral, right? But those viral posts even generally tend to connect more to like my core avatar, my core client base, because I'm really trying to get in the heads of those folks. Like, if I'm going to go viral, I want to go viral with the people I want to sell to, as opposed to just anyone, right? So that's been a big change for me. And then, yeah, probably 2 to 3 times a month, I'll try to still continue to post something more personal. I am a big believer that regardless of what you're doing and what you're trying to sell, if you want to build an engaged audience, it can't just be the same content on repeat over and over again. And like, you need to have them interested in your life to some degree. And I'm not saying go full Instagram, right? Like, you don't need to make it pretty and beautiful and convince folks that your life is perfect, but allowing them to see that you're a person underneath whatever persona you've taken on the platform is still really important, because people buy from people, right? Like that's really important to my strategy at the end of the day. Is I still want whoever is working with me or interested in following me to know that, like, I'm still a dad, I'm still a husband, I'm still, a person that has these priorities and characters. And like, LinkedIn isn't all that there is, right? Coaching isn't all that there is. My job at Amazon is not all that there is. That's important to me, because that's also the kind of people I want to work with. And I would say, like, that's the other flavor of my content that I have in 2023 that I really didn't have in 21 or 22, is I'm saying things and I'm sharing things that are way more pointed at my core avatar, which is, mid to late career professionals trying to change industry. But that is, in a nutshell, like, what my content strategy looks like. The other thing that I'll say, and I'll kind of pause because I've been talking for 15 minutes, and we can go into depth on this, is, I talk with a lot of creators. I set a goal in 2023 to meet with 50 new LinkedIn creators. In 2024, I set a goal to meet with 100, and I've met with probably about 45 so far as of April 22nd. So I do a lot of conversations with folks in the coaching space and the creating space. What I will say is everything comes back down to your objective. Like you can sell a coaching program and make $1 million with 15,000 followers. You can do it. It's absolutely possible, right? Like you don't have to be viral to be a really successful business owner. And I would hope that no one leaves this call with that thought, right? Or that, that thing in their head. And I'm sure Daniel has never said that to anybody in his program because he knows better than anybody. That's not true. Like, I met with a woman a couple months ago who kind of blew my brain, right? She was selling kind of an executive coaching package to Black women professionals. She had crossed the $1 million threshold. She had 11,000 followers on LinkedIn, right? Like that's amazing. I've never sniffed at that number, right? That number has never even watered into my wildest dreams. So that being said, like everything is about how you want to dial up a strategy. Because conversely, I have met with creators in the past couple of weeks, right? That one guy in particular that I think about, like came over from Twitter in February, started posting, hit 5,000 followers, and then kind of launched this massive, what I would call like an engagement pod effort, because that's what they were used to doing on Twitter, and did 140,000 followers in 2.5 months, right? Posting exactly what I talked about, like just straight, super viral, cheat sheet oriented content. And again, like there's something to be said for the content, of course, but more importantly, they went out and purchased their ticket into engagement pods, right? They paid for services that got them into certain groups of people that would comment on their stuff or like their stuff. And like I said, I'm not going to shame or say bad things or anything like that about any practice that you choose. All I really want to say is there's a lot of different approaches to whatever your objectives are. If you want tons of followers and tons of engagement and tons of growth, like that's a path, right? And then if you want to make tons of money and activate an audience and run a really successful business, that's a path. And there's hundreds of paths in between that spectrum. It really all comes down to what your objectives are. And yeah, that being said, like I'm an open book. Daniel, I
I
don't know
do
if you
have,
want me to go anything else specific, but
Yeah,
that's
just
me.
a couple of things that I think is super awesome, and thanks for sharing, Adam. I think it's important to understand like what is your goal for your business, and large number of followers doesn't necessarily correlate again to making a lot of money or vice versa. I think just to even a quick two shout outs. Next Monday we're having another event with Gurov, and I think he has less than 15,000 followers. I wouldn't have put his revenue number. I'm only saying this because he publicly put it on the community. He did $2.8 million last year in his career coaching business. He has less than
Yeah.
15,000 followers, right? He publicly said it, and he's like, "Oh, I'm willing to share." His story is awesome. Like he sold a staffing agency that was doing, I think, over $48 million in revenue a year, and he sold it off with him and his partners. And he's doing this career coaching business as a side balance, and he doesn't work out many hours, and he doesn't have a huge team. But I think it's really important to understand like who is he selling to. I think also like who are you selling to matters. So a lot of the people like Adam, you mentioned of another lady. Obviously, if you're selling a career coaching package that's over $10,000, you don't need a lot of people to do $1 million a year, right? But
Right.
again, that's awesome, right? That's super awesome. And but no, yeah, I think there's a lot of questions, Adam. I think thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that's really awesome. And what you said something about the engagement pod, I think it's just a shout out to the community. There's a really active engagement pod inside of the career coaches community, and I see most of the people who are active on it are the ones who are here. So I think it works really well. But I think a lot of the questions are who is the right people to engage with. So let's go through them, Adam, in like in the order of people asking them, and then we can see whatever time we have left.
Okay.
So I think Sindhu. Okay, that was a comment. Okay, Todd, you had the first question. Do you want to unmute yourself? Or do you want us to read the paragraph, the 3 essays that you wrote on the?
yeah, I can ask it. I was trying to
Yeah,
structure it so it wouldn't be too complicated. What's up? Also from Atlanta, Adam.
What's up,
Very close
Todd?
to you.
Good to meet you in person.
Yeah, close enough. So you mentioned one of the things that you were doing is commenting a lot. And this is a strategy that I think a lot of us here, we've even seen being a part of Daniel's group when I started posting mine in the community coaches or career coaches engagement pod, my impressions skyrocketed. Um, what I also noticed though is a lot of people looking at my profile were not necessarily in my ICP. So if we know what our niche is, would you recommend more engaging with other career coaches? I will continue to do that because I love this group. Or spending the time commenting on people who are creators or influencers in our niche, but not necessarily career coaches. Does that
Yeah,
question make sense?
it absolutely makes sense. I'm processing your question so I can answer it to the best of my ability. So, as I said, it comes down to objectives. If your goal is to scale your following, you're going to want to go after people regardless of whatever background they're in. You want to go after people with higher and higher levels of engagement and higher levels of active audiences, right? So if you think about the creators out there that are activating in the comments section, large numbers of people on every post, like Jasmine Alec or Justin Welsh, we're seeing thousands of people show up in the comment section. Like from an algorithm perspective, those types of people would be the best possible folks to comment on your stuff within the first, again, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it is, because they're going to drive SEO on your content, to the highest degree. So like go out and establish relationships with highly followed people that get lots and lots of engagement. And I don't just mean likes, I mean comments, because what LinkedIn is going to do is it's going to refilter your stuff to their audiences because they're active on their posts. Now they're going to start seeing your content because Justin or whoever the person you've picked is now talking to you. So that's the short version on the engagement side, which is, I think, obvious if you spend any time on LinkedIn, right? Like that's how you can kind of cheat the system. And it's how some people do cheat the system is they will pay into these communities, or they'll just go out and bug the heck out of people and convince them to start, commenting or engaging on their material. It happens all the time. To your question on, what's the right balance? I think in hindsight, kind of doing it the way I did it and the way I think I should have done it, in hindsight, I think the play is really more like a 60-40 split. I think when we talk about audiences, LinkedIn following numbers are kind of irrelevant, in my opinion. And I don't want to say that to discourage people from building them, but what I do want to say is, like, the number doesn't drive business value or business performance. We know that. We've seen that. There was this massive purge, right, in 2023 where LinkedIn went out and tried to shut down all these fake and old blocked accounts, fake accounts, and inactive accounts. And we saw people lose hundreds of thousands of followers from that. And like that number, what's funny, like my number in particular, if 10% of my audience isn't even alive, who cares, right? Like it doesn't mean anything. So all that is to say is, I think the real value, and I'm going to say this from a number of perspectives, right? As a person that owns a coaching business, as a person that is building a brand, as a person that might at someday, do brand deals with other companies, you want active followers, not just followers. You want followers that are going to engage and call into your calls and like your stuff and comment and be active, right? You're giving them value and you want to convince them to give you something back with their support. So to your question, if I had 100 people that I was commenting on every single day, I'd say 40% of the people that I would go comment on are going to be those, again, like heavy hitting, high follow, high engagement accounts that I want to reciprocate, engagement onto my material. 60% are going to be people where my avatar wants to live or where my avatar wants to go or what might attract my avatar. So like a lot of what I do is I'll go out and find people in the program management space or the product management space, right? And a lot of times those folks don't have hundreds of thousands of followers. They might have 5 or 10 or 15, right? And that's pretty common. That's okay. If I go and drop some product management comment on a product management influencer's post, the likelihood of, again, like me attracting the right client is way more likely. So I hope that answers your question. I think a 40-60 is where the average person should be for me in current state, because again, like I'm not going to say followers aren't a problem, but I don't necessarily need more followers. I need more engaged audience members. So my number is probably much closer to like 20-80. I spend a heck of a lot less time on kind of the engagement growing accounts and way more time on the places and spaces where I think my people are. And sometimes I kind of add this in as a bonus tip. Like what I've been finding recently is that one of the best possible things that I can do, and I don't want to call this a hack, but it really might be, is I have been finding folks that have been impacted by layoffs, right? And I just did this a couple weeks ago with a creator named Alexis who works at Cisco. She put on like a how to do LinkedIn one-on-one class for 300, 400 people that were laid off at Cisco. And I was like, hey, can I join? Right? Like, I'm just going to basically be your backup in case there's questions about stuff. I probably got 20, 30 different people that reached out to me about career coaching just by going to that, that event for 30 minutes. And like, those are the kinds of things you can look for. It doesn't always have to be a post or a comment. It can sometimes be an event or a conference, right? Like those things still work. Hope that answers your question.
It does. It's just reframing what do I actually want and then making the
Right.
moves to get there. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Sindo, your question was about identifying which coaches or creators to connect with. Did that answer, or is there any follow-up question to that?
No, that pretty much answered my question. Yeah. But I had another question of like,
Yeah.
how do you kind of identify what topics to post or talk about that would go viral or like help grow your followers?
I mean, if you want to identify viral topics, there's probably like 3 buckets, I would say, or 3 things that you could do. Number one, this is going to sound petty, but I think this is really important. You need to identify the medium, especially on LinkedIn, that you want to use, right? Like, are you going to post images every time you post? Are you going to post carousels? Are you going to post videos? Are you going to post cheat sheets? Like understanding the medium or the mechanism that you're going to use consistently is important, because I have found this to be true, that creators that generally stay more consistent with one medium do better over time than creators that kind of hop all around the place. That's not universally true, but I think that's important for when you're starting out. So figure out the medium you want to use, and then go find creators that use similar mediums that go viral. And it's not hard to do on LinkedIn, right? I mean, you can run searches for creators that have certain amounts of followers. You can run, I mean, honestly, what I would do is I would just call somebody up on LinkedIn that is familiar with LinkedIn and ask them to give you some names, right? Like Daniel Botero, right? Hey, Daniel, who are like 5 people I can follow that are highly, highly engaged on the platform. The other thing I would do is to think about regional considerations, like where in the world are those folks? What time are they posting? Because there's lots of viral going people that are not in our time zone. Like, you're not going to interact with those folks because they're posting at 11 o'clock at night or 3 in the morning. And you need to factor that kind of stuff in. And then the other one that I'd say is you can use services to, I mean, I'm not trying to pitch a service, but like you can go get a free trial on Taplio, right? And Taplio has an AI tool built into it that will literally tell you like these are the most viral topics on, viral posts on whatever topic you want to search for in a given day, right? So if you want to, go get a trial of that product and type program management into the title to figure out who's posting about program management and what topics are doing really well, like that's an easy one, right? I did the same thing, a couple months ago. You can also use other AI platforms like Gemini or ChatGPT. Like they'll do it too. I don't think they're as good as a service like Taplio. But yeah, word of mouth is really effective. AI products can help. Your own research, right? I mean, run a Google search. Google search looks at traffic and engagement and can help you find effective folks. There's a number of ways to do it. But yeah, if you're just looking for creators that drive high levels of engagement, they're not super hard to find on LinkedIn. The content is a different question, just because content I think looks so different now. But yeah, that's where I'd start. Is I'd probably try to build a list of like 20 to 30 people and just start the research process to understand what they're talking about if I wasn't using any other support system. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, clarifies.
Awesome. Neil, your question is next. Do you want me to read it, or you want to unmute? Oh, there you go. You answered my question.
And I apologize if you touched on it, Adam, and good to see you, and thanks
Yeah.
for taking the time today. In terms of the nature of your business, how it's unfolded, in terms of how you deliver your services. I know Daniel's a big advocate of scale and, conveying X through certain media and one-on-one time at critical moments, things like that. But we'd love to hear what your business, if you would share, looks like these days.
Sure thing. Yeah, this is a really ugly question, but I'm happy to talk about it because for a very long time, like I said, like I'm in full transparency, this has never been a thing that I intended to do full time. It's never been a thing that I was like, yeah, I'm gonna retire on this. It was more like a fun side business, and I did it for a long time. I mean, 3.5 years, where despite the LinkedIn growth, I never made more than $20,000 in a year, and I was totally cool with that, right? Like that was fine, because that wasn't. I mean, I think it was the Todd that asked, right? Like that just wasn't an objective, right? The objective was to some degree, like let's just pursue this and see what happens. So, what does it look like now? Like I said, 2023 really is where I started to change a lot of things. 2024 looks very different than it has in the past. So to get down to the brass tacks. The business in current state is a cohort-oriented coaching community. So I have a program that it's technically a 6-month program, but the way it works is if you pay into the Broda Coaching Career Transition program, right, you're going to get access to our online course, which is a bunch of modules and lessons. It's video based. All of our like templates and tools and everything we kind of teach is in there in a step-by-step delivery system. You get access to our Slack community, and we do office hours and group discussion sessions. And then we also use Career Flow AI, which I think many of you on the call also use. And that is essentially like how we facilitate our group program in current state. I'm still very much in an experimentation phase, so there's a lot of things that could change. But yeah, that's what it looks like right now. I'm not doing any one-on-one coaching, although I get tons of requests for it, just because what limited time I do have, I'm trying to really put into the scalable program. But the vision for me, to be really upfront, like where I'd like to be in 3 years, like 2024 is the year I want the career transition business to get stable. Like I'd love to get to a place where I'm doing cohorts every couple of months, if not every month. And that business is kind of a somewhat consistent form of income. Like that's the objective for what I'm doing right now. The long-term vision is I really want to work. Like I'd love Broda Coaching to be like a 20-30 person business, and I'd love there to be a mid to late career professional component. I'd really love there to be a student component, and I'd love there to be a corporate component. I like my passion, and I think this is a little bit different from a lot of the coaches that I meet. I love the coaching element. Like I don't ever really want to remove myself from the coaching process in terms of like I'm hiring a coach and now they do the coaching and I'm kind of somewhere else running a business. Like I really want to do the coaching. I love that part about it. That's what got me into it. And I don't think that'll ever change. I love the process of working with people directly. So like I said, like I'd love those tiers to exist and would love to do training with corporations just because I've worked in corporate for so long. And I think there's so many ways I could help solve problems there. And then the last one, which I've kind of toyed around with a little bit, is teaching on like a topic similar to this, like teaching people how to build content generating strategies for writing about career coaching topics, right? And how to grow versus how to, activate an audience. I don't know if that will happen in the next year or two, but like those would be the components of my business moving forward. And then I think maybe the other component of your question, right, is I think to do that, I'm going to need way more time. So at some point in 2024, I'd like to kind of close the door on my Amazon career, my corporate career for a little bit, and like fully dive into the world of Broda coaching and give this a shot full time. I don't want it to be a thing that I kind of give half effort for too long, just because I know how effective I can be when I'm fully vested in it. So that's the vision for me in current state.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, good question. It's also great to see you in person, Neil. I know we've interacted for a long time on LinkedIn.
Same here, and I hope you'll reserve one of those 100 spaces for me for us to speak.
Shoot me a message. That goes for everybody on the call. Like I said, I'm like 48 people in, so the goal is get to 100.
I shall.
Well,
Thanks.
you just got to 60.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's not a joke.
Maybe 70. Maybe 70 if you, I don't know how many of the people here you've already spoken to. Ash, your question I think is kind of answered, but did you have a follow-up question? It was about similar to Todd, wondering how much of your efforts, if at all, is engaging with your target audience via connections or comments.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Adam. I'm going to sign up for one of those spots as well. I followed you for forever. And so I've been looking forward to today. So my objective is definitely more inbound clients. I don't worry or hasten too much about the following. But I have run my business primarily on a referral basis. I would say in the last like 4 months is where I've started seeing more like LinkedIn inbound, and I have a very small following. So I don't think that the following has really correlated all that much to business outcomes. So my question was less about engaging with these big creators or these folks who have gone viral, and more actually engaging on like an individual level. And so like for me and my partner, I have a partner, she's not here today, but we have like over 2 decades in tech. And so we really focus on that mid to senior level, but not executive level tech professional. And one of the ways that we've been super successful, similar to how you said, was we hosted office hours for a company that did a layoff, and like over 20-something% of those converted to clients. And so I'm like, do you think it would be helpful to find, individuals who are active on LinkedIn and start building rapport with them because they might refer? Or do you think that that might be too much of a time or energy suck?
It's a great question. Maybe more of a business question than it is a LinkedIn question. But like Daniel, you can weigh in here because this might fall more in your domain of expertise. But I'll give you my 2 cents. LinkedIn is still very much a sales and marketing platform, right? And I think if I was in your situation, I think what you're describing makes sense. Like my content would probably be a lot more narrative, right? I would be more storytelling. Like these are stories that, happened when I was in tech, right? This is an example of a thing that occurred when I was in this position. And the whole intent of that would be to share stories to get my expertise and my experience visible, but also to attract people in similar stories or situations to those stories. So I probably, again, like if I'm dialing up a content strategy based off of your specific situation, like it's probably going to be 3-ish posts a week on these narrative examples of like past experiences, past results delivered, or past situations from your corporate experience, and then, you know, maybe 1 to 2 kind of more sales driven posts where you're making it clear to these people that are engaging with you on, you know, these narrative posts on something like, hey, I run a program, right? I can solve problems. I do coaching. The last thing that I was going to say, which you already hit on, is if your referral only and word of mouth is an extremely powerful thing, I would probably consider something like a weekly or bi-weekly LinkedIn Live situation. Like if that's what you're going for and personal engagements and interactions and conversations really move the needle for you, you know, think about doing some sort of a LinkedIn Live series or a live series anywhere where, you know, you invite folks from other companies or hiring managers or people that design ATS software or whatever it is that's going to activate your audience or pique their interest, and just have 30 to 45-minute or 60-minute discussions on those topics and do some Q&A. You know, it's like if word of mouth is what you're going for and you want to flex your expertise, I'd say like the live platforms have done really well for people in those spaces, as opposed to just, you know, like a master class where they have to show up to and they want to hear a sales pitch. So it sounds like you're already doing a lot of that, which is great. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Ash, I want to like add to something there too. You know, Adam said in the beginning of it, it's like, you know, business is it's an infinite game, and so there's infinite possibilities on how you get clients and how you're successful in business, and that makes it beautiful because it allows all 20 of us to have our successful business because our definition of success is different. And I think sometimes we fall into the trap that social media is the only way to get clients in 2024, and that's not necessarily true. I I've also had the pleasure of speaking probably with thousands of career coaches and hear so many awesome ways to get clients. And you were that example of you sharing of the company that you did a workshop for our office hours for people that the layoffs converted 27% reminds me of someone I think you should connect with. His name is Stan Miller. He's in the community. He worked at AT&T. He still partners a lot with AT&T. I think he gets, don't quote me on this, but over I would say 25 to 50% of his clients come from ex AT&T people. And I think a strategy that worked really well for him, and again, it's not a secret, I know we've talked about it on my podcast and stuff on, is he has a really good relationship with executives at AT&T and people who are sponsors ERG groups. So he would speak for free on ERG groups, which then led to then, you know, ERG groups, right? You're extremely probably familiar with that, right? Because of your BAS background. By the way, your partner is here. Christina's here. She's just not, her camera is not on. And I think that's a really winning strategy. So like if you have a really good corporate background, like I know Ash, you and Christina do, if I'm in your shoes, it could go to ERG groups, volunteer to do free office hours, and then get referrals like that, because you guys' background is extremely impressive when you're saying like you're getting advice from talent acquisition managers and directors from really big companies. So again, it's not only LinkedIn. I think, you know, people have found LinkedIn to be really successful, but again, but then the second thing I was going to say to Adam is I wouldn't cold message people if I was in your position, but I would do warm outbound, meaning like anybody that comments or like your post or views your profile, you could start the conversation and make an organic conversation about it. And also something that I am noticing a lot is like a lot of people that like your posts not always turn into clients, but people who view your profiles who are better leads than the ones who like it, because people who view your profiles are afraid to say they need help, but they look at your profile because they don't want to publicly acknowledge they agree with your post or are in that situation, or because they view your profile that converts better. So like, hey, I noticed you checked out my profile. You know, are you currently looking for a job? Like what's going, you know, and then if you start the conversation there, that can lead to a sales call, or if you're having an event, invite them to an event, and so on.
I love that. That's really, really insightful.
Awesome.
All right, I'm gonna try to roll through a couple of these pretty quick because
Take over, Adam. Take over, sir.
there's some great ones in here. So, Mary, your question, you had a viral post, right? What's the secret to growing on the platform while making meaningful connections? Really, really simply put, some percentage of your time needs to go into relationship building, right? We use the term networking. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you're posting content and you have 20 likes on it and 5 comments, you need to be responding to 100% of those comments, right? Like it sounds really, really simple, but it works, right? It really does work. It's have conversations in the comments with people, right? Respond to them, make them feel appreciated, make them feel seen. You know, there's a huge difference in just saying thanks and then actually kind of conversating, right? Move from comment conversations to coffee chats, get faces and names, and again, like support their content if you can. It's a really simple model, but it is highly effective. And I guess what I would say is like, I still go pursue relationships with high engaging people, right? Or people that are commanding lots and lots of views. And the way I do that is by sending direct messages on LinkedIn after I comment on their material for several weeks and try to get coffee chats. And then, you know, we kind of go from there. So, you know, it's a super simple but highly effective method for growing on the platform, is just build relationships with the people that are actually showing up, whether they're showing up by commenting or liking. Look for opportunities to actually turn those little clicks into real relationships. That has never been a thing I've ever regretted spending time on. There's a lot more I could probably say there, but I'll kind of leave it with that. How do you figure out what topics would lead to going viral? So I think we kind of addressed this already, but the simplest form I can say is just like research, right? Like get on the platform, spend time on the platform, talk to people that are using the platform. Again, like Daniel, like myself, like, you know, again, there's a number of creators in this thread, but go assemble a list of 50 names, right? And do some research, track them, you know, look at their engagement numbers. There's all kinds of services that you can, you know, pay for or use for free that can help you in the process. But like I said, off the top of my head, if you want to do nothing but just explode virally, you know, right now cheat sheets are really, really big, and cheat sheets on viral topics are effective. So like we could dive into that, but okay, I heard lately that LinkedIn videos are not getting engagement and more LinkedIn carousel is the trend now. Have you strategy in that sense? This is a really loaded question. The product management team at LinkedIn, which I talk to every once in a while, I have a couple friends over there. They've made some pretty massive pivots in the way that the platform works. And I am not claiming to be an engagement guru. Please don't label me as such. I don't understand the algorithm that well, but I do talk with the people that are responsible for understanding it. What I would tell you is that a pretty massive shift happened in 2023. And I'm just going to share this. This isn't necessarily a question, but I think this is helpful information. LinkedIn and their Microsoft partner kind of collectively decided to work hard from an algorithm perspective to get a wider base of content creators, right? So like they did this offsite thing and they said, hey, like what are the biggest problems with LinkedIn? And they came back and they said, well, comparatively speaking, if we look at Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, right? Like there's a number of users on those platforms. And then there's something like 5 to 25% of the users on those platforms that make content, right? If you looked at LinkedIn, it's like 1%. That is clearly a problem. So what do? We need to design a system or a set of algorithms that reward people in whatever capacity for making content. We need to make people believe that they can be an influencer or creator on this platform. So there's a lot of incentive from an SEO perspective for new creators and creators with less than 50,000 followers. The algorithm, I'm not saying that you should just expect these massive engagement numbers, right? But the algorithm wants to help people in those spaces. So like someone, I think in the comments said like, you know, I wrote a post and it got 6,000 likes and I got all these followers. Like that's the algorithm at work. And I'm not saying you wrote something that wasn't worthy of that engagement. I'm just saying like there's a lot of incentive to reward folks with smaller followings that are being consistent. And I would actually tell you, if you look at percentages and data, which I do a lot of tracking on, like the folks getting the biggest month over month gains are folks with less than 100,000 followers. Like that's where the algorithm is trying really hard to boost followings and convince folks to keep creating, because really what they want to do is not, we don't want all the engagement to go to these LinkedIn super users. We want it to go to more low-level creators so that we have a larger content creation base. Does that make sense? So that was kind of a strategic product decision that was made, by the LinkedIn product management team. In terms of figuring out, like, again, videos or carousels, I guess what I would tell you is, like, honestly, that stuff changes like every 4 to 6 months. So what I would say is, like, get comfortable with some form, get good at it. For me, I think, like, what I would tell anybody that I was working with is you need to, at a minimum, be comfortable with writing, right? Like, you need to be at a minimum comfortable with text-based posts, writing hooks, writing short form content, being clear and concise, getting your single point across. Like, if you do nothing else, get comfortable with that, because you can always turn that into a short form video. You can always turn that into a carousel or an image. And there's hundreds of thousands of AI tools now that offer the ability to do that. But I guess the last thing I'll say here is the current, new kid on the block from an algorithm perspective are these cheat sheets, which is a form that came over from Instagram and Twitter, where you pack a ton of text and value added information into an image or a PDF size image. You post that, and then in the bottom somewhere in the comment section, you tell people, hey, if you want a high resolution version of this, sign up for my newsletter, right? There's some incentive for following in on the process. That seems to be doing really, really well right now. There's lots of folks. I actually met with a creator last week who decided to start an agency that strictly does cheat sheet ghostwriting for other creators, right? That's all they do. They partner up with folks on LinkedIn and they build cheat sheets for them based off of posts that they've already created. So, like, there's businesses even forming around this stuff. How long that will be the cool thing to do, I'm not sure. But like I said, if you kind of follow the data and you do research on this, it does change fairly frequently. The rumor on the street is that video is going to make some kind of a comeback. I don't know how or when or what that will look like. LinkedIn tried it 2 different times. It didn't do well either time.
They keep saying that, but every time you try, you look at the data for
It's not there.
it's not there.
Yes, they want it so badly, but it's not there.
Adam, if I may, I asked the question. Thank you for answering. Daniel,
Sure.
thank you for doing this. As a follow-up, I also recently heard, and then from a great influencer, Jazz, that commenting on your post, like 7 comments or 3-4 comments on your own post. What are your takes about that? And, like, it takes a lot of effort also to create comments on your post. It's like, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Again, thank you for this.
Yeah, good question. It's not a thing that I do actively because I really don't have the time. But in an ideal world, I do think that effective content creators use their comment section as an opportunity to build culture, right? All those creators have a brand. And what they're doing is, in addition to just responding to comments, they're facilitating the culture of the conversation. And it's really, really important. It's almost as if their conversation takes on a persona. Like, if you go look in the comment section of Jasmine Alec, who I think is one of the absolute best people to do this, those conversations are lively, they're spirited, there's images and memes, and, like, people are interacting in crazy amounts. And like I said, it just comes back to your objectives. But at a minimum, I think if you want to build relationships with people, respond to them, talk to them, right? Do you need to, drop 5 to 7 comments? Like, the short answer is I don't know, right? Like,
that's the maximum. You sometimes say, oh my God, he's doing so much. Like, should I do it? Copy him?
Yeah, like, I've been told by some folks at LinkedIn, like, the algorithm doesn't like it when you just constantly drop your own comment over and over again. I know tons of people that think it doesn't matter at all. And then again, like, there's coaches that drop comments on a post that's not about their coaching business, about their coaching business. So they sell in the comments, right? They don't use their post to sell, they sell in the comment section. So there's a bazillion strategies. My opinion, if I could summarize it, is I think do the basics first, like, interact with the people that need to be interacted with first. Like, that's where your time should go if you have a limited amount of time. But yeah, a few kind of targeted, pointed, discussion-oriented questions to help build the culture or the persona of your conversations are good, right? Ask intelligent questions, post something that's useful for the folks in the audience, share a picture of something that is important or might, stir up a conversation. Those are all good things, right? Maybe some people do it from a perspective of just they want to keep the post alive and getting as much engagement as possible. I think the people that do it the best are the folks that are doing it to benefit their audience and not to benefit themselves. But
Yeah.
again, it kind of comes back to how much time you have.
Thank you, Adam.
Adam, thank you so much. I want to be super respectful of this. I know how busy you are still balancing everything, your networking, your business, and your job. Before we hop off, guys, we have another amazing event this week. Just so I want to just promote it, just so you guys know. It's with Tiffany Utman, and we're going to be talking. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same link as this. We're going to be talking about more on the operational side of business. Tiffany has a great massive following on Instagram and TikTok. She has about 15,000 followers on LinkedIn. But again, like we've learned today, it's not just the following. Tiffany's really good operator. And 85% of her clients who buy her initial offer buy her secondary offer. So if you want to learn more about the upselling side of it, 85% is massive. If you guys want to learn that, I encourage you to come for that event. And again, I hope you guys are enjoying the community. Continue to tell us what you think we're missing. We're always obviously trying to improve this. But Adam, this is awesome, man. I was taking tons of notes, and so again, I always learn so much from you. So thank you so much for doing this, and thank you guys all for coming. I don't know if Adam's still there or, but
Yeah, I'm dropping, but it was a pleasure. Don't hesitate to reach out. And Daniel, let me know if you want to do this again. This is
yes,
great.
yeah. We'll connect. I absolutely want to do this again. So, but I'll message you, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Guys, again, thank you so much. Hope to see you guys on Wednesday's event. And thank you. And if you guys have any suggestions on how we can continue to make this community better, if you have any other career coaches that should be in here, send them a link to join. Appreciate you guys. See you guys later. Enjoyed this conversation. This is just the little peak of the iceberg that what's inside the career coaches community. So I don't know what you're waiting for. If you're not already in this community that's absolutely free, that is only for career coaches, go ahead and join right now. We host events like this one on a weekly basis, and we can't wait to see you there. If you have not already liked and subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? I'll see you inside.